Hey, everybody. Welcome to You Don't Even Like This Show, a podcast about news, politics, pop culture, current events, whatever I want to talk about. It's my goddamn show. And speaking of that, joining me as co-host this week, my favorite co-host of all. No co-host, but Jeff will be back next week. And I do have a couple of guests. Case in point, Kim Kral is here.
Hi, everybody.
Everyone knows Kim. She's on the podcasts all the time. She was on the 500th episode, in fact.
I was. The like four-parter, right?
It was a two-parter, but those two parts were both around 2.5 hours each.
Oh.
It was very long. It was very fun. Hey, also here, Erik Barnes. How's it going?
Hello. Oh, it goes whether I like it or not. So far, it's okay this morning.
Well, that's
see.
good.
Yeah.
I really liked that answer. I'm going to use it. It goes whether if I like it or not.
I mean, it's fine. As long as you credit me at Erik W. Barnes. Ha.
Every time.
You say it.
Every time.
Every single time.
Just confuse everyone I interact with.
Listen, Adam, you know this by now. It's called branding. So got to do it.
True.
Unfortunately.
Oh, hey. Speaking of branding, right up top, just so I don't have to record an ad about it at the beginning, we have a new store now. If you go to youdon'tshow.link/store, you can get shirts. We got some You Don't Even Like This shirts. And you can buy cards from me and Jeff's pack breaking videos. And you can also buy a hard drive that has every episode of every Unpopular Opinion podcast ever on it. It's called the Unpops Forever Drive. And go check all that out, please. There's only 4 of those hard drives left as we record this. So anyway.
Wow.
All right. So let's get to this week's topic. Yeah. We're talking about a thing that happens sometimes when you're a comedian where you do a bit and then someday that bit just comes to life. And that has happened for me with the Titan submersible disaster. At the end, we'll get to why this is a joke come to life for me.
Oh, so you've been Simpsonsed.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I mean, I don't mean to be insensitive about it, but it's going to get a little insensitive at the end. In the meantime, we will treat this as the disaster that it is. Is everyone familiar with this story? How can you not be?
It's everywhere. It's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
I know more now, though, researching for this. I knew very little of it. I knew more about like the jokes people were making and then the anger people were having about the jokes and then the down the middle of like explaining why there's jokes. You know, like I know that was unavoidable for me, but yeah.
Well,
yeah. It's spiraled into a debate over comedy theory and so on, and when is the right time, what is punching down, and et cetera, et cetera. But that is navel-gazing and masturbatory for people
to an extent, that's our own fault for being on social media too much.
Yeah,
like I haven't really had any of those debates, but it's because no one is on Blue Sky, which is the only social media app I'm really using right now.
Keep rubbing it in, Adam.
Didn't you promise me a referral? Like your third referral, you get one every few weeks.
I haven't checked. I don't know if I have more. I might. We are again talking about the OceanGate Titan submersible. It was a tourist craft that was taking 5 people to view the wreckage of the Titanic when it catastrophically imploded, killing everyone on board. There were 5 people: Hamish Harding, a British businessman and explorer; Shahzada Dawood, a Pakistani billionaire, and his son Suleiman Dawood; French diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who is a renowned Titanic expert; and Stockton Rush, the OceanGate CEO and founder, who has a really cool name. I will give him credit for that.
Stockton Rush is cool.
No, you got to take the whole package.
Who is the name of the English businessman again?
The English businessman, Hamish Harding.
Yeah, Hamish Harding sounds. Yeah, that does sound like a British adventurer from a pulp novel.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All these were pretty great names. So good for
if
them.
this was a fictional film instead of a thing that happened in real life, that guy's name would still be Hamish Harding.
I mean, if this was a fictional film, there would be some writer that would be like, hold on, these names are way too out there.
Yeah.
They're not believable enough. We got to get a Timothy or a Smith somewhere thrown in.
And as we'll get to later, they'd probably also be like, no one would ever believe someone would get on this thing.
Yeah.
There's no way we can make this movie.
Yes, it's beyond belief. This is too low budget to shoot to be believable.
Yeah.
But also, before we get to that, let's talk about this craft. It's a submersible. And I know people at home are like, isn't that just a submarine? No, they would call it a submarine if it was a submarine. Why do you think they call it a submersible? I
didn't know the difference.
I didn't either, but it turns out the difference is a submersible lacks the power reserves of a submarine. So whereas a submarine can get underwater and travel on its own for a long, long time without any help, what they were doing here, when it says they were going out to the wreckage of the Titanic, they were taking a boat out to where the general area of where the wreckage of the Titanic is. And then this thing was dropped from that boat. A submersible needs a support vessel to launch it and retrieve it. It can't like travel places on its own. So that's the difference.
Oh, so it's an anchor.
A little bit, yeah.
It's just an anchor.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, it's an anchor with people in it.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is these people have so much money. Why didn't they just get a submarine? Why did they get on this?
I imagine a submarine, like we're saying, well, you have so much money, why not just get that? That's a different level of having money. Like there's submarines that run on nuclear power. Like that's not going to be a thing you pick up at your local RV.
These were multi-millionaires. They weren't billionaires.
I'm going to level with you. I know very little about submarines and submersive apparatuses.
Really? Because I booked you specifically for your submarine knowledge.
My expertise.
You got a degree in oceanography, for God's sakes, Kim.
Way back when I booked you on this podcast and the thing we're talking about had yet to happen, I was still booking you for your submarine knowledge.
Oh, fuck. I've let you down again.
Yeah, you blew it.
Coral Crab Kim Kral, for God's sakes.
What did you call me?
You heard me, Coral Crab Kim Kral.
I want to be called that for the rest of my life.
Oh, just either that or Kim Crawfish. Kids got jokes.
So this ship, the Titan submersible, it began trials in 2018, made its first actual trip in 2021. It made 10 dives in 2022, not all to the Titanic, but the fact that it made those 10 dives is going to be very important when we talk to James Cameron later. The ticket price to get on this thing, $250,000. It was billed as, quote, a chance to step outside of everyday life and discover something truly extraordinary. That's so much money.
You could probably have 3 of those experiences minimum with that amount of money, save for this one.
Yeah.
A chance to live outside of your date. That's, so a vacation.
Yeah, that's a trip to Thailand. Yeah. Like what?
Travel around the world. Like if you're just backpacking and not, not slum, you don't even have to slum it. You could just go around the world for $250K. You can make that work. You can visit everywhere.
Yeah. You could do so much with that.
Why visit something that is literally just going to be photos? That's literally all it is. I mean, I not to spoil or anything. You get to look out of a porthole and you're done. And
you're like, oh, that's the Titanic. I've seen this.
I've seen National Geographic.
Yeah.
James Cameron can be my best friend if I want him to for $250K. So anyway,
I feel like
I'm jumping ahead.
I feel like if there was like a James Cameron edition of this trip, it would be more than $250K. If you had Cameron down there with you,
no, it'll be more
$500K for that minimum.
No, what I mean is like James Cameron could be like, oh, here are the pictures that I took when I did the thing. And all I would, you want the porthole experience? Here, put your head into this glass tube and I'll put up the photo. And
I'd show up
there's your experience.
I'd show up dressed as one of those blue fucks from Avatar.
Yeah.
Show that tail, Cameron.
I just pictured you in my head with blue face, like
still all fat and hairy and shit.
He's like,
Adam,
what is happening right now?
Adam, if you and I were to dress up as Na'vi, people would be like, what the fuck are these Smurfs doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Why are those Smurfs so sparkly?
Yeah.
Everyone's so confused.
Why are they trying to fuck these things with their hair?
Why do those Smurfs have yellow eyes? Those guys drink too much.
Yeah.
So the Titan Submersible, it started its final voyage on June 18th, which was a Sunday, 9 a.m.
And my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday to Kim.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. We got 5 millionaires on a ship for you.
It was 9 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. It lost contact with its support ship at 11:47 a.m. When it failed to resurface as scheduled at 6:10 p.m., a search and rescue effort was launched. That might seem like a long time to wait, but we're going to talk about this system they had to communicate with the ship in a little bit. And when we do, you'll understand why it was very common that this system would malfunction. There's a journalist who went on this exact same voyage, who people have interviewed after this happened. And he was like, yeah, when I went down there, the communication system went out for 3 hours and we were just sort of lost at sea for a little bit. So they were probably assuming the same thing, that, okay, well, the system is down again, but surely everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then 6:15 p.m. rolls around. That's when they're supposed to reemerge, and they did not. And that's when they started the rescue operation.
That's kind of a short trip, though, right? Like the original schedule time. Like they left at 9 a.m. and they were going to be back at 6 p.m. That's like a work day. I thought it would be more than that.
Well, for one thing, we've been talking about what this experience really is, and you just go down to the ocean floor and you go,
yeah,
yep, there's the Titanic. So
there it is. Well, time to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I really thought it was more until I read that. And I'm like, that I Googled for a while.
Get on and check out the ballroom and shit. You're just down there. Apparently the whole round trip down to the Titanic and back up to the surface took about 8 hours. And that's what I was so confused about when I first heard this story. Because on the one hand, I read that the wreckage of the Titanic was 6,000 nautical miles or something. It's way out there.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I read that this submersible goes 3 miles per hour once it really gets pumping. And I was like, how does this trip work? And it's because there's another boat that they just drop it from. So it takes 8 hours to get from the surface of the ocean down to the Titanic where no man should be, and then back up to the surface. And apparently also, when you sign up for this, you get on this boat and you go out to the wreckage area and you're there for multiple days. And they try to get down to the Titanic multiple times and usually fail. The journalist who they interviewed who had been on this, I think, mentioned that 1 out of 5 times it works. And the other times they just have to give up.
What a wonderful rate. And that's worth all that money.
What?
Yeah, I was going to say, what a value for $250,000. You don't just get one trip to the Titanic. You also get 4 failed trips to the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
So it dropped. What I'm understanding, they go out and then they try and drop it down, and 4 out of the 5 times they have to come back up, and then the 5th, and then they finally succeed.
That's not a hard, fast number. It's not that they have baked into the process that you have to fail 4 times. I know. Usually on these trips, they have to try multiple times to actually get down there.
Yeah. It's 1 out of 5 average.
Trips where it took 1 out of 3 times, but it fails more often than it doesn't fail.
Yeah, which is totally why this should be a business.
The more I learn about this story, the more my brain can't wrap its head around it.
I mean, it's because we're not rich.
Yeah.
There's so many things rich people do that we could never wrap our heads around.
I want to preface everything I say from here on out that yes, this is a tragedy. These are people, and
obviously
there's human life involved, but a lot of this could have been prevented if there wasn't some form of millionaire hubris involved. It's asinine. I'll just say it.
It's hard to feel sorry, but it is like they are humans. It's hard to, because it is like they're people, their children starving, and
I feel like as long as you're a normal person, you can find room in your heart for both of those.
Agreed.
Things.
To exist. Agree.
Like, this is obviously a tragedy. It's made even worse by the fact that there was, I mean, not a child, but there was a very young dude.
Yeah, an 18-year-old kid.
This ship who had his whole fucking life ahead of him. And we'll talk about his story a little more in a minute. It's like double tragic.
Yeah.
And like any situation like this is obviously very bad and a huge disaster. But as we get further into this, and especially when we talk about the last thing, keep that $250,000 ticket number in mind. Keep that in mind, and also keep in mind these people knew what they were facing.
Yeah.
You obviously weren't going to do this and have it not be a risk of some sort.
No, there were several red flags that were ignored, blaring ones, but
right.
Yeah.
And so once they realized the Titan was missing, it was really a race against time, because there's 96 hours of available oxygen inside the Titan submersible. And that's all dependent on like the breathing rate of everyone on the sub. Like, if you got one motherfucker just like hyperventilating, you know, you're going to have to kill him. Otherwise, everyone else is
and
gonna
eat
suffer.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. You might have to eat him depending on how long you get stuck
I
down there.
feel like right away you eat him just to get it out of the way.
Yeah. Anyone hungry?
I could go for a pre-eat. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so the problem was the search area they had to deal with was about the size of Connecticut, which that I don't quite understand, because it seems like the support vessel went right to where the Titanic was.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you just search down there?
Straight down? Yeah.
One would think, unless there's like some form of drift that we're unaware of, like underneath,
Currents
like through currents and stuff. But
Yeah,
even so, there's not enough slack or whatever it is that they do to connect it to. That's the size of Connecticut.
It's the ocean. You know what I mean? So that doesn't surprise me, the size of Connecticut. Like, we don't have a lot of business going as deep as we keep thinking we should. Like, it's a whole other world.
That's a thing I talk about all the time. The ocean can kiss my ass. I mean, it's beautiful and we need it, and the things in there matter, but also the things in there own it. Like the ocean.
The
ocean is theirs. It belongs to the fishes and the aliens.
And the killer whales are proving us right. And also Mother Nature is just like hurricanes and just, I mean, like, the ocean has taken itself back. We do not belong in that world. I don't know why we keep fucking with it.
Atheist or not, you don't piss off Poseidon. That's it.
Yeah.
No.
But also, it was pretty clear right away that this was not going to be a rescue mission, especially once the Navy stepped in and they were like, we actually picked up the sound of either an explosion or an implosion right around the exact same time that you reported this vessel missing. So people knew, like, they knew it wasn't going to be good. And even then I saw a news segment where they were interviewing someone, and I think it was Lester Holt on NBC News. I still watch local and nightly news like I'm 75 years old.
Good for you.
And he was like, so if you find them, then what? Like, is there any conceivable way that you're going to be able to rescue these people? Because one of the things that comes up in the notes, when you get in this thing, you are bolted in from the outside, obviously, and they use 17 bolts to seal this door shut. So it's not like, and even then, if you could open the door, it's not like you're going to want to do that. You're not going to be able to with all that pressure on it. Like,
can't do it in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what short of like Aquaman fucking swimming down there and just picking this vessel up whole cloth and bringing it to the surface. I don't know what they expected was going to happen.
I don't know what they expected was going to happen, but this is just one of those situations in which I can sort of understand that you have to say at this point, at this time, we're looking with this is a rescue mission and all that type of stuff as a means to just quell panic, for one, and for two.
Yeah.
You can't. It's one of those. Well, what do we do when we get it? It's like, well, we can't answer that question until we get there.
Let's
if we
get
ever
it.
get there. So
Yeah.
it's no win regardless
And
of your method.
The people who were familiar with the Titan would have already known, because one of the things I read, I don't think I put this in the notes, but one of the safety mechanisms it had in place was when it got to the bottom of the ocean, there were these hooks that kept it attached to whatever anchored it down. And those hooks dissolve over time. And the reason they dissolve over time is if you get down there and something happens and everyone is unconscious, you're still eventually going to float back up to the top once those hooks dissolve. So I imagine once that part didn't happen, they were like, yeah, this is a different thing.
I'm just thinking, like, did they know that they were lost? You know, I mean, this is like answers that we'll never be able to get, but it is like the human part of me is just like, how fucking scary.
Well, we do actually, we do kind of know the answer to that, because after it was found on Thursday, June 22nd, there was a debris field that they found like 1,600 feet from the wreckage of the Titanic. And that's when we found out that the way everyone died was a catastrophic implosion. Tom Detweiler, an ocean explorer and friend of one of the people killed, describes a catastrophic implosion as, quote, just like a light switch was switched off. They didn't even realize what was happening. They didn't suffer. That makes me feel better about what happened. But I also wonder, was there like noise? Like, did they start hearing?
Yeah, like, was there like,
any
leading
kind of
up to it
indication that it was going to happen? Because it's good to know that, like, when it happened, it was quick and they didn't suffer. Because the other alternative was, well, they're just going to be down there and they're going to run out of oxygen and slowly suffocate, which that would have been pretty brutal.
But yeah, that's my question. I know that's how that they say it was pretty quickly and it was very painless. But I mean, leading up to it, did they have any idea that they were lost, that they couldn't, that there was no,
Yeah. Did they consciously know that they were going to die?
Yeah.
Dying.
That's a thing we're never going to be told. There's a similar question with the Space Shuttle Challenger, where if you go back and watch the footage of that, all the stuff that explodes is not the part where the astronauts were. The part where the astronauts were very slowly and painfully falls to the ocean for like 2.5 minutes. And there is some school of thought that they were alive that whole time that it was falling. If you were to close your eyes right now and try to count to 2.5 minutes, you'd probably open them after like 75 seconds. That's such a long time to be in a situation like that. So for their sake, I hope that's not true. Or I hope the conspiracy is true, that was all faked and they're just all still alive. And yeah, in this case, I hope there was no like forewarning of that implosion, because that would
I hope they were just like, "Woo, we're going to the Titanic," and then boom.
Yeah. Which it sounds like it could have been that too. I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
Comedy podcast. Hey.
I'm sad.
So now let's talk about the Titan submersible itself and what it was like inside that thing. Obviously, OceanGate started getting a lot of scrutiny after this story broke. And one of the things that came up immediately, this vessel that cost $250,000 to board was controlled by a video game controller. I believe an Xbox controller. And
probably
their
some
argument...
Mad Catz bullshit.
Oh, like literally?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, their argument isn't terrible. They're like, listen, it works and it's very easy to replace. So what's your problem? And I guess, but yeah, like,
I mean, good for you.
I got on a ship and the pilot was like operating it with a mouse, I'd be like, no, that's not how these work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Where they're like, we're going to bolt you in now.
Point of hubris number one. That's
okay.
As soon as I read that, I'm like, why would anyone agree to any of that? Why would anyone agree to go on it, for one? Why would anyone pay to go on it, for two?
Yeah, we're gonna bolt you in and just start up the engine here, and then it's like the fucking dial tone from dial-up internet or something. Like, what is this? Bam! Yeah. I tried to do the dial.
You hear the Halo theme play.
That was perfect.
Thank you. Also, the only form of communication with the support ship was this like jerry-rigged text messaging system.
Red flag. Hubris too.
Because if I was in the bottom of the ocean, I know the first thing I'd think is, oh, my phone still works. Like,
yeah, no.
My phone doesn't work if I go to the wrong 7-Eleven. Yeah, and we're relying on text messages at the bottom of the ocean.
Phones don't work in basements. And that's not even below sea level. So, no.
Also, everyone had to sit on the floor, which I wouldn't get in your van if you told me I had to sit on the floor, much less take an 8-hour trip to the bottom of the ocean. No.
Was the floor carpeted, or did they have like some kind of padding, or was it just like a basement hard floor?
I'm pretty sure it was just a
all I know is
floor.
All I know is that if your accommodations are less than fucking Spirit Airlines, the answer's no.
And all this was in the thing that they had to sign too, right? It was like, hey.
Yeah.
But unlike a lot of their competitors, yes, there are more of these. The Titan did have a bathroom.
Most of them don't have bathrooms. That's wild.
Most of them don't have bathrooms, but also you're on a ship that is 22 feet by 9 feet by 8 feet. The bathroom is in the front, as if that makes a difference in a room that size. And there's only a curtain that separates you from the rest of the people. The captain does turn up onboard music while you're in there. But also, if you're the person who gets on there and decides to take a shit, you're going to get murdered. That's basic tour bus rules.
I have a couple questions.
Tour bus.
I also have a couple questions, but go ahead, Kim.
What? First of all, I would definitely be the one that pooped on there because I have nervous poop problems. So I would be nervous and I would be like, I have diarrhea, guys. Sorry. 2, what music was the guy playing?
That's my question.
Like what? Yeah. Was it his playlist? Was he like, I made a bathroom playlist, everybody. I'm really proud of it. Like people are about their like specific playlists. Or was he
I'm sure it's a thing that changes on the fly.
Or was it like a boombox? Because they don't like how we listen to like music now is like we need the internet sometimes.
Calling back to
you don't need the internet to listen to music. Like at no point have you needed the internet.
Does he bring a wham? I hope
he use iTunes maybe.
I hope deep in the wreckage, yes, I'm making light of this tragedy. I hope deep in the wreckage they find like a wham cassette and just a regular ass tape recorder boombox.
I want it to be a boombox, yeah. Because you need the internet for Bluetooth to get in a speaker.
It's not internet, Kim. They don't have the internet.
Kim,
they're not pulling up
That's what I'm saying. How do they play the music?
Physical music. I have a CD player right over there.
Like on the radio? It is a valid question.
Kim, you were born in the 80s. Music has been a non-internet entity in your lifetime.
I know, but now people just use like Bluetooth.
I don't.
This is a submersible controlled by a video game controller. You don't think they have access to a regular ass boombox or
that's what I'm saying. Did they bring in a boombox? They just have a boombox sitting there.
Why are you so hung up on this? Of course you just brought in like a boombox or something.
Yeah. How loud are you peeing that you need music?
Listen, Kim, here's what happened. They brought in a boombox. It's powered by batteries. It's a cassette player. They put in some wham. And so that way you can wake him up before you go. And that is the perfect thing to piss shit to.
That was really good. That was really
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
I'm a professional comedian man.
They did also encourage passengers to restrict their diets so as to avoid having to use the bathroom, which that is the polite thing. You don't shit in an environment like that.
What if you have no option though? You can't tell people
go on the Titan submersible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go on that.
That's another red flag.
If you have IBS, don't go on the Titan submersible.
You should go regardless, but that's yet another reason.
Well, they have a version that's for those situations. It's called the Titan IBS. And it's just one where everyone who is going to have to shit just goes down at the same time.
In fact, it's
my brain just went, really?
It's waste powered, like methane powered.
So
yuck, but yes.
Also, before riding aboard the Titan, passengers were required to sign a waiver that the same journalist I mentioned who had been on this before, and we'll link to his interview in the show notes. He said the waiver you sign would make your toes curl, and described it as, quote, a list of 8 paragraphs about all the ways you could be permanently disabled or killed. So that's one thing to keep in mind when we're talking about how much of a tragedy this is. Yes, it is, but also the people who went on this ship knew what they were facing.
Yeah. Like that's
like this was a choice.
Yeah, oh yeah. No. All these red flags that we're mentioning, they're not just red, they are on fire.
Yeah.
Well, especially the part where this vessel also was not certified by any kind of regulatory body, which I'm sorry, that would be such a deal breaker for me. And people knew that. Like there was all this controversy about that this whole time. So people knew that. And this is a quote from OceanGate, I think in like 2019, when people asked about why there was no regulatory body approval. Here's the quote. Bringing an outside entity up to speed on every innovation before it is put into real world testing is anathema to rapid innovation. Whoops. Whoopsie.
Yeah.
And
Jesus.
It seems like ignoring and disregarding safety and quality checks and concerns is going to be an ongoing facet of this story, because it already is. Case in point, after this incident happened, a Las Vegas man who turned down 2 seats on the Titan for him and his son shared a bunch of text messages he'd received from Stockton Rush, making all these wild claims about how safe this thing was. The guy's name was Jay Bloom. He said Stockton Rush was trying for months to get him and his son to be a part of this trip. And one of his claims was that it was safer than flying in a helicopter or scuba diving.
False.
And it's like, you've taken this thing down like 10 times. There's no way you could know that.
Oh, we made it to double digits safely. That makes it okay. Hooray.
And actively didn't get it or regulated by any outside entity. Like all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something really dumb real quick?
Sure.
That I'm embarrassed about? I thought OceanGate up until a few days ago was just what we were calling it, like how we call it Deflategate. Like how there's like this whole time I thought we just like called it OceanGate. I was like, well, that's pretty insensitive.
You know what, Kim? To your point, that's another red flag. They should poor branding.
Yeah. And then I was like reading the notes and I was like, oh, that's the name of the company?
OceanGate.
What?
We're going to be a scandal someday.
Yeah, like that's 100%. This whole time, I thought
but
it was
also,
just what we were nicknaming the whole thing.
OceanGate, we are not crooks.
But also someone on this text chain seemed to be especially concerned about sperm whales and giant squids, which
they should be.
Like, sure, like can't one of those things just eat this thing?
I've seen maps from 1802. I know they exist there.
They don't show us the entire text back and forth, but the main one is from Stockton Rush, and it says this. Yeah, very stupid. The pressure is over 100 million pounds. No sperm whale or squid is ever going to be able to mess with the sub. While there's obviously risk, it's way safer than flying in a helicopter or even scuba diving. There hasn't been even an injury in 35 years in a non-military sub. I'll send an email with what happened when a swordfish attacked Alvin.
Stockton. That's not
Alvin.
a submarine.
Wait. Who is Alvin? And when are we going to find out what happened when a swordfish attacked him? That is the only question any of us should have right now.
Who the fuck is Alvin and what happened to him?
Where's Simon in all of this?
Oh, I loved that show.
Was he fighting the swordfish with a rapier? Was it what is this?
Yeah, that's a wild text to get. I am on Jay Bloom's side. I'd be like, no.
I'm all right. Yeah.
Traveling with this guy.
Yeah.
This is another quote from Jay Bloom. He sort of had this predisposition that it was safe, and anybody who disagreed with him, he felt it was just a differing opinion. He also said that Stockton Rush flew a home-built plane all the way to Vegas to try and talk him into going on this voyage.
That also was confusing.
Now,
I mean, that's
did
the
he
thing.
make it out of like a plane building kit? Or...
Yeah, did he make the plane?
Probably. Yeah.
Well, point being, that's a pre-made, like, yeah, it's a kit, meaning it's been made by people that know what they're doing, presumably.
Yeah.
So you just paint by numbers, put it together, and boom, fly. It's not like this submersible, which is like, no one has really done this before, so we're kind of making this up. And was the plane powered by a PlayStation controller or an N64 controller? That's what I'd like to know.
It seems like they're a pretty common thing. Like I Googled it. And there's an article about 17 plane kits for under $25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a rickety ass Dr. Killer plane, but
it is. But
again,
but
it's rich people shit.
It's rich.
It's not really that expensive, though.
It's rich people shit, and also this has been flown. This model has been flown more than 10 times,
right?
You know, successfully. Otherwise, it would be a fucking kit.
And I mean, my brain thought of like a cartoon plane, like kind of like Rickety pulling into his driveway. And Jay Bloom's
he's like, oh, the propeller's not working. And as it is flying, you just install a new one and just just move it by hand until it finally goes.
Is that the spruce goose?
Yeah. Also, why did this guy need Jay Bloom to be on it? Like, what was like? Why was he like nobody?
Needed the $500,000.
But it sounds like he didn't have a hard time selling it before other people were signing up.
I bet he had kind of a hard time because this is so up a rich person's alley.
Yeah.
And like there are multiple stories about people who are like, of course I told him no. You serious? Why would I want to get on that thing? That's nuts.
Yeah. And then immediately after it's like, well, did you have a fun time? Would you like to invest?
Yeah. You know. And you also have to take into account that they had competitors whose vessels were approved by regulatory bodies.
Hey,
so, like, the smarter thing to do as a rich person would just be to get on one of those. So this guy, he probably had to do a lot of in-person sales shit to make this happen.
Maybe he wanted to prove Alvin wrong or something. I don't know.
Oh, Alvin.
I need the Alvin and the swordfish story so bad.
Did you Google it?
No. Cam, I'll do it right now.
You didn't just what happened to Alvin and the you didn't? I think you Google everything.
Swordfish.
Yeah, Kim, 90%.
Oh, it's a real thing. In 1967, submarine Alvin was attacked by a swordfish.
Oh, it's a submarine. I thought it was a dude. Boo.
That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as exciting. I thought it would be like this guy swam out.
Yeah.
Also, can I get like a sorry, Kim, we were making fun of you about the Googling, that it probably wasn't going to be in the Google statement somewhere from one of you.
It was in the Google. You're right.
You guys are being a little mean about that.
I'm not going to apologize. I just thought Alvin and the Swordfish would be more of a children's book title than anything.
You should write it. I'll illustrate it.
The submarine was piloted by children. Yeah. That's why Alvin attacked.
And it's a talking submarine named Alvin.
Yeah, he figured he could take him. So, of course, James Cameron has something to say about this. And that sounds like me making a joke, but no. James Cameron actually spends a lot of time in the ocean, like way down at the bottom. Back in 2012, he piloted a craft called the Deep Sea Challenger to the literal deepest part of the ocean. He is one of very few human beings to have ever been to that point in the ocean. He also said he made Titanic mostly because he wanted to see the wreckage of the Titanic. This is a quote. I made Titanic because I wanted to dive to the shipwreck, not because I particularly wanted to make the movie. The Titanic is the Mount Everest of shipwrecks. And as a diver, I wanted to do it right. When I learned some other guys had dived to the Titanic to make an IMAX movie, I said, I'll make a Hollywood movie to pay for an expedition and do the same thing. I love that first taste and I wanted more. And since then, he has made more than 30 trips to the wreckage of the Titanic. He spent a lot of the 13 years between the Avatar movies in the ocean, like doing research, because a lot of Avatar 2 takes place underwater. So he knows some shit about what happened here. Like, it seems weird, but James Cameron is kind of an authority on stuff like this. And he says the problem, and this makes a lot of sense, was that this ship had a carbon fiber hull. And this is his quote. Sorry, it's kind of long. You don't use composites for vessels that are seeing external pressure. They're great for internal pressure vessels like scuba tanks, for example, but they're terrible for external pressure. This was trying to apply aviation thinking to a deep submergence engineering problem. We all said that it was, a flawed idea, and they didn't go through certification. I think that was a critical failure. The thing that's insidious here is the way these materials fail at pressure. They fail over time. Each dive adds more and more microscopic damage. So, yes, they operated the sub safely at Titanic last year and the year before, but it was only a matter of time before it caught up with them. And that is why that ship probably did not go through certification.
Agreed.
Which, I mean, I don't know. Who do you sue? The guy who you would sue he died in the ship, I guess.
Also, they all signed waivers. So that waivers that were literally like, you're going to die. So fine here.
I know this. OceanGate should no longer be a business.
Yeah, I doubt they will be. I ended up not putting it in the notes, but one of the stories we were going to talk about is how like every company that does this has like canceled all their expeditions for like the next couple years.
What I don't understand, like when I first heard about this, I thought going down there is like unheard of, really dangerous, really hard. And then the more you look into it, it's like, no, lots of people who do this. This particular company just was like, let's make it even more crazy for some reason that we didn't need to do. Like, I thought it was like,
I remember when they first found the wreckage of the Titanic, because it was for a long time so deep down there that we couldn't get to it.
Like robots had to go down there, right?
Yeah. And I think it was like 85, something like that, when we finally discovered the wreckage. And people have been going back ever since.
Here's the thing that's telling to me. James Cameron is goddamn insane. He really is. I cannot stress enough how crazy that this man is. To give you a little bit of a backstory, how he became a filmmaker was he was just so obsessed with film. As a truck driver, he drove trucks to USC Film School and photocopied the books to study film that way. And thus he is an obsessive man, and he is hard driven. And yes, he is a creative visionary and all the complementary things. But the fact is that he is so nuts that he looked at this particular expedition and said, that's too crazy for someone like me to agree to do. And that tells me everything. If the crazy guy says that shit's nuts, that's when you pay attention.
And then the question is, who's really the crazy guy? Is it James Cameron, or is it the people who went down in this?
It's the people that went down. Listen, the only thing that beats crazy is more crazy, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I get why it's hard to feel sorry for these people. It's very hard because it is like they signed a waiver that was like, you're going to die. And they were like, all right, well, here's my money. You know what I mean? Like, it's real. It like, and I'm a very empathetic human, and I'm having
let's make it easier. Let's talk about Suleiman Dawood, the 19-year-old who was aboard this vessel. One of the really tragic aspects there, CNN interviewed his mom, Christine Dawood. Mm-hmm. She was supposed to be on this ship at first. They booked this trip back in 2019. And at the time, Suleiman was too young to go on the trip. I think you have to be over 18. And then COVID happened, and it delayed this trip by a bunch of years. And by the time it came around to them being able to do it, Suleiman decided he wanted to go. And his mom, this is a quote, "I stepped back and gave the space to Suleiman because he really wanted to go. I was really happy for them because both of them, they really wanted to do that for a very long time." And she talks about how Suleiman was obsessed with the Rubik's Cube and took one down there with him so he could solve it on the floor of the ocean. She and Suleiman's 17-year-old sister were both on the support ship when this happened. So they like
God
all
damn.
made the trip. The other half of the family was on the boat when these two went down. And the fact that there's a kid involved, like,
yeah.
obviously makes this.
That's going to haunt her for the rest of her life.
But it pisses me off because it's like, why would you send your kid down? How much more expensive could a safe Titanic trip be? You know what I mean? Yes, of course I feel sad for them. Of course, you know me. Of course I'm sad. But I also am like mad.
You have to take into account that they did have Stockton Rush obviously in their ear assuring them that this was safe. And they're like, we've done it. Could have been
easily the Bloom family too.
Yeah. So
I know it's just such a like
you're absolutely right, Kim. This is incredibly complicated.
Yeah, it's not. It's
and to manage feelings regarding this, and
now
you're allowed to be sad and angry at the same time, empathetic and angry at the same time.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Let's make it a little more complicated, because I mentioned up top that this kind of ties into a joke that I've been doing for years. It actually started as a Cracked article that I wrote in like 2013, 2014. But the whole premise of that article and the whole premise of the joke is, and I'm not going to like do the bit.
Damn, I was really hoping you would.
But the whole point is like when rich people go on these elaborate and expensive adventures and inevitably get lost, why is it always our responsibility to bail them out? Like the example I use in the joke is this couple that let their 14-year-old daughter sail around the world by herself.
Jesus Christ.
And she like broke down twice and we had to go send the Coast Guard to go get her. And like one of the punchlines is, I'm not saying we should have left her there, but should we have just left her there? Because like her parents obviously had send your daughter on a boat around the world money. You should have rescue your daughter from the ocean money. And if you don't, then you just never had the money for either of those things and you just didn't realize it. And this is that joke. Like this is that question. And it's not me saying, like, I'm not the only one asking this question. We'll link to a couple different articles about it. There's one estimate that the search and rescue operation here is going to cost about $1.5 million. And that will be taxpayer money. And
it makes me so angry.
There's an NPR article that we'll link to that brings up a really good example of why people make this argument. There was a guy named Steve Fawcett who was a swashbuckling millionaire adventurer whose plane went missing over a Nevada mountain range in 2007. We had to launch a search and rescue operation to go look for him. And it was the third rescue mission that had been launched on this rich man's behalf. All of them funded by taxpayer money. It seems like an insensitive question, but I honestly don't think it is. And for the Coast Guard's part, like, of course, their stance is, well, we don't put a cost on the value of a human life.
Nor should they.
We're going to go out and do the job. And it's like, that's not what we're asking, Coast Guard. We know you're going to go out and save this person regardless of who pays. The question is who pays after. And in a situation like this, if you have money to send tourists to the bottom of the fucking ocean to see the Titanic, we don't need that. You're not doing science. You're not doing society a service. When
it's literally a private industry.
It's a private industry for rich people who thrive on adrenaline and danger and risk. And when that risk goes wrong, I'm sorry, but someone other than taxpayers should have to pay for it.
Yeah, don't they have insurance? Isn't this why they have insurance? Like
insurance should be a question also. And it is a hard question to bring up in a situation like this because we are fresh off of this tragedy. But I think the fact that it is like all billionaires and they spent what, $1.25 million? Well, no, it would have been $1 million because I doubt the CEO paid to be on there. like a cumulative $1 million to get down there. Like that's a $500,000 net loss for the taxpayers. Like it's going to cost 1.5 million. Like I don't think it's an
not
insensitive question. Like no one asked these rich people to go to the bottom of the ocean.
And these are the same people that don't pay taxes, who look at poor people and say, you know, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, even though I was born into this. It makes me so angry because these are the same people who have zero empathy for poor people, for kids who were born into poverty, who can't afford college, internet to just learn basic shit at school. Like there were stories during COVID. This is what makes me so angry. There's stories during COVID that a mom who works at Taco Bell couldn't get time off. So her kid had to come to Taco Bell with the janky laptop that she was able to afford, but there wasn't good enough internet for him to go to Zoom school. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it makes me, and it's like, I would be cool with us paying for that if we also had universal health care. If there was it makes me so angry. And I don't think and I know we're fresh off of that. Sorry, I was really quiet and light until now, but we're fresh off the tragedy. But no, if you're going to go down and spend $1 million, you pay the insurance to get your ass out of there or get your ass rescued. Not the people who can barely pay their taxes. You know what I mean? There are people who barely could pay their taxes. And
I agree with you, Kim.
So angry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. You have every right to be angry. I agree that this is. I agree to a point that this is a systematic issue.
Yes.
Overall, I don't know the opinions of those 5 people of the poors or whatever. There's presumption, obviously, and all that. Honestly, they apparently live a lifestyle in which they could just live in ignorance of everything else. But what I do know is that we were able to set aside taxpayer money to do that type of thing, which we should be able to rescue anyone of any class, of any kind. I mean, you know, we all grew up, all 3 of us here grew up in the 80s. We heard about the little Jessica and the well story and all that, and all the resources used to just for something small like that. I see that as choices made aside a similar deal and prices aside a similar deal. So I don't think the real question is whether or not we should use taxpayer money to get these billionaires out of the gates. It's more of we should be taxing these millionaires so that one, they don't need to be able to afford to do such nonsense. Yes. 2, if they do such nonsense, we can easily afford it after we fix everything else that needs to be fixed. Yeah. I mean, and it's clear to me that, you know, with all of our, you know, this is a bit of a tangent, but we invest so much in the military that we have the money. The money is there for all these little things. We just need to be smarter about where we're distributing it and make it an equal playing field.
I think that's a different argument, though. Like, we obviously need to overhaul taxes, but I think this is way simpler than that. Like, I feel like this should work the way speeding tickets should work. Like, if you're in a situation in life where paying a speeding ticket is going to like cripple you financially and cause all of your outstanding checks to bounce and things of the like, you should have to pay a very small amount for that speeding ticket. If you're a billionaire and you get pulled over going 130 miles an hour in your fucking Ferrari, you should get a $150,000 speeding ticket. Like, it should impact everyone's life negatively or no one's life negatively. And that's not how it works now. Same thing here. Are you a fucking poor person who is down by the Titanic because it's the only place your janky ass Taco Bell laptop would work so you can go to school? Cool. We will pay to rescue you. Are you a billionaire? Your offspring's getting a fucking bill for that rescue operation. Like, I think it's as simple as that. Like, in a situation like this, yes, we're obviously not going to leave people there to die, and we do have taxpayer money to finance stuff like this, but pay it back. Fucking pay it back.
Pay it back, like, or tax those people. Tax those people. People are getting rescued on money that's not theirs, that they didn't pay into.
Even then, even if we're taxing them appropriately, if you can still afford to do shit like this, nope, you got to pay to get yourself rescued.
Yeah. I just want at minimum whoever the fuck to step in and just dissolve Ocean Gate, and then the taxpayers get whatever assets are left. They don't keep a fucking dime. I know it's not, but that's how it should happen.
All the stuff we're saying is never going to happen. All this stuff that we're
of course, but that's the thing is like they're the ones that did the massive fuck up. They're the ones that ignored everything. Honestly, it is their deaths are on their heads, and there should be, and that seems to be the justice. They shouldn't have a PPP. They had a PPP loan, for fuck's sake. They should have to pay that back on top of absolutely else.
I don't think they had to, right? That was another thing I read.
Yeah, they didn't have to do that. And, they were looking for fucking replacement employees.
I think that's also why the jokes and the insensitivity are coming about, because like you said, this is such a systemic problem. The
jokes are about capitalism and how they don't give a fuck about you.
The people that are like the people making them, it's like, well, they don't. That it's about capitalism, and it's hard to feel empathy for these people who don't pay the taxes. And as a human, of course, thinking about them down there, I hope that they had no idea that thing was about to explode. That's awful, or implode. That's awful. But
I think the other reason the jokes are happening is because this is that whole libertarian ideal coming home to roost. That is, this is, why so many regulations? Like, why do we have
libertarians
restrictions on the free market and people's ability to create? And this is why you go through a regulatory body before you take a 19-year-old kid down to the wreckage of the Titanic. Yeah. This is fucking why. And yes, it's a tragedy, but also we fucking told you so. Like, this is what happens when you strip those regulations away. People fucking die. So,
I mean,
people are going to have to be prepared that, like, this is like the defining war of American civilization right now. People are going to have to expect that there's going to be strong feelings on both sides.
Yeah. No, I would love to meet a libertarian that has never used a public road, never gone to a library.
Every libertarian I know is kind of an idiot. I know like 4, and everything they say, I'm like, I feel like you don't know what you're talking about at all.
I remember.
That's a blanket statement, I know, but the 4 I know. Yeah.
Well, under pure libertarianism, none of them would reach past infancy.
There was an interview with Tim Allen, I remember once. And he was talking about paying taxes, and he was like, yeah, man, I remember like in my 20s, I was just, all I was doing was just being a comic, traveling around, telling jokes. I felt like I wasn't really draining that much from society. Why should I have to pay taxes? And it's like, you heard the part about traveling on roads, right?
Yeah,
like,
you fucking
taxpayer money gets you to your bullshit comedy shows where you can inform on your friends for selling cocaine, you fucking rat.
Yeah.
Did he do that? God, I love it when you're mad about something random I don't know about.
The old clip of Craig T. Nelson. I was on unemployment. No one helped me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Fuck off.
So dumb. It's so dumb.
Unemployment. No one helped me.
You're a dumb person. Like after that, I would just zone out. Everything you say after that, I can't even give.
Well, that's the thing. They can
something like that.
Yeah.
They're in a position where they can afford to be ignorant now, which is honestly, I think the main vein of this entire story is that they could afford to be ignorant about the video game controller, about the safety regulations, about whatever. It's rich. This is a tragedy. We're allowed to be sad for the lives that were lost, but if there is some lesson, if there is anything to be learned about this, it's millionaire hubris costs lives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a tragedy that we are, just like almost every other tragedy, we are right to ask questions about
agreed.
It and why it happened and how it happened and how we deal with it in the aftermath.
Yeah. And how to avoid it in the future. All tragedies sort of force us to ask questions about our society and why something like this was able to take place, right? Going from like shootings to this to just every big tragedy is like, well, how did we get here?
And with something like this question about well, who should pay for the rescue? I know there's going to be some people listening to this who are like, well, okay, that's a valid question, but now's not the time. You're not going to be thinking about this a week from now. Like, this will be complete.
The next thing will have.
You'll have to be reminded in a year-end listicle that this happened by the time the end of the year rolls around. We have to talk about it right now.
This school shooting was such a tragedy, but now is not the time to discuss gun control or anything
absolutely
like that.
The time to discuss gun control.
Exactly.
It's
the same argument. It's using it, obviously we need to process grief, both the individuals do and as a collective we need to. But again, questions need to be asked and action needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's our episode, right? We did it.
Yeah. Did you want? I felt like I wanted to end feeling good, but I don't think there's a way to do that.
You wanted to end feeling good, talking about the Titan submersible implosion.
I know, but I'm sad. Okay. Yeah, I know that there was no way to do that, but
yeah, that wanted this to end on a happy note. Reminds me of comedian Ralphie May. Rest in peace. I saw him do jokes in Madison, Wisconsin. It was right around the time of the second Malaysia Airlines crash. And he was like, man, that's a real PR nightmare. I have a suggestion for them. They should just change their tagline to Malaysia Airlines. We build reefs.
That's really fucked up.
Very good joke.
I mean, the fact that it's called the Titan submersible, going to see the Titanic, leads me to believe that there will be some millionaire out there that will create another submersible to try to find the submersible that tried to find the Titanic. And it's going to be shortened to just the tit.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. That makes me feel good too.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you both. You made me. You made it a little lighthearted.
We're gonna call this episode "Traveling on the Tit."
There we go.
We're not.
Yes.
We're not.
I get so excited.
But we are going to wrap this episode up. Thank you both so much. I appreciate it. I already plugged our store at the beginning of this, so I'm going to do the right thing and not plug anything else. Kim, do you have anything to plug?
I love how that's the right thing. I'm going to do the right thing.
I feel like I'm ethical about my plugs.
You are very ethical about your plugs. Thanks for having me. I love this. I think follow me on all the socials, KYMKRAL. I have a podcast called Kral Space, KRAL Space, SPACE, not space. I don't know why I find that so confusing. And then I also wrote a book, Confessions of a Recovering Party Girl, and I'm working on the audiobook, and I'm hoping that'll be out. It's very tedious. I'm hoping it'll be out soon, but I don't hold your breath for a little bit.
Yeah, making an audiobook's tedious?
Come on. Do you know how many clicks I have? And I'm
I don't know any of those things, but
I'm
sure it is a nightmare.
Eric, or you're not popping those peas. Oh, what do I have to plug? Follow me on Twitter because Adam won't invite me on Blue Sky at Erik W. Barnes and maybe an Instagram. If that happens, I'll let you all know. Please watch old clips of myself and friend of the pod, Rivers Langley, doing commentary for Wrestling Pro Wrestling. And on top of that, if you're into Some More News, I'm now a writer for Some More News, so watch Some More News on YouTube. But in order to get links and to figure out where I'm performing, what I'm doing next, and all that type of stuff, if you're interested at all, add Erik W. Barnes on Twitter until I can find another place to hop over.
All right.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Yeah, okay.
Damn it.
I wanted to plug your shirts, Adam, because I want to get one of those. You didn't even like the shirts.
I plugged them. All right. No one's listening anymore. I already plugged the shirts.
Well,
I want the shirt. I want a shirt.
All right. Let's get out of here. Kim, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Erik, say goodbye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. We love you.